This is Real Talk with Leigh Brown. And for those of you who asked, this is not an AI background. This is a real Philco stove. And today I've got Christopher Waters with us. He's not just the guy who built one of the most profitable teams in real estate. He's built a way to make things better in real estate. And I love new ideas and interesting conversations. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. Take notes, and I'll see you on the other side. Do you remember that episode of Friends? Are you old enough to remember when Ross got his teeth whitened?
I don't.
Might be too young, but you should go watch it because it was hilarious. And they turned the lights out and you could still see him because they whitened it like 2 shades too white, which is the color I want.
Well,
So we need a balance.
I just got back from Cabo, so I'm very
Oh, so
tan
you're
right now.
tan.
And my teeth look very white because I'm so tan.
I know that's why I've got to get tan because I drink too much coffee to have white teeth, but it's the price I pay to be nice in the morning.
Oh, I feel you on that. Dean.
So tell my audience who Chris Waters is, where you located, what do you do in and around real estate, what's your interest in the space? Give us a little thumbnail sketch of you.
Yeah, so I mean, real quickly, I got started in real estate right out of college in 2006.
Really?
Joined a team as a buyer's agent at Keller Williams. I'm in Austin, Texas, right in the backyard of KW's HQ. I was 21. I was not very coachable. I was not very humble. I had a great sales leader, a great team I was on, and I just was not very coachable and not very patient. I only stayed on the team for like 4 months. I think I sold like 6 or 7 homes in those first 4 months.
Man.
Went to another brokerage, and for anybody that doesn't remember, the market started declining in 2007, 8, 9. And I was a young 21-year-old kid. I was selling houses. I had somebody recommend I go get into the oil and gas business, doing what's called being a landman, which basically means
The
you
new
go.
show? You were Billy Bob
Well,
Thornton?
I haven't seen the show Landman, but my job was basically to go track down the owners of the mineral rights and then try to get them to sign an oil and gas lease so they could drill a hole. And so I was doing that and selling homes those first 2 years out of college. And in 2009, that's when the market hit the bottom. I think the Dow Jones, if anybody remembers this, the Dow Jones was at like 5,000 and it's at like almost 50,000 right now. Yeah. So, anyways, there was a loan officer I was sending business to, and he grew up in the bar and restaurant business. And he said, "Man, we should invest in a bar and restaurant. Alcohol sales do great during a recession." And so I put all my money in this bar and restaurant. Like literally, I'd saved a couple hundred grand. Bought my first house in college, took the equity out of the house. And 6 months later, we had chains around the door. There were these big stickers everywhere.
That
Also,
fast?
yeah, it was fast, very fast. We had a lot of things go wrong. We had some money go missing, our credit card, our debit card got used for some Chinese gambling website. We didn't have the protection in place. We're getting hit with like 20 grand, charges. I mean, like our bank account got emptied very fast. A myriad of issues, but yeah, and I had like the Lebanese mafia coming after me because they own the liquor stores where we bought the liquor, and the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission trying to hunt me down. And
Is this
so
this is in the DFW area?
this is Austin,
I know you're
Texas.
still in Austin.
Yeah.
The Lebanese mafia in Austin?
I don't wanna mention who it is, but yeah, the guys are from Lebanon, and, anyways, they're super nice guys, they just wanted to get their money.
I mean,
So,
obviously.
yeah, so anyways, that was my first taste of humble pie, and, so at 24, I was like, "Man, I gotta get more focused," and I couldn't even afford my rent, and I went and lived with my girlfriend at the time and started just getting back on the phones, prospecting, booking meetings with clients on this red IKEA couch, and was super laser focused, started closing a lot of deals. And then in 2010, I still needed to make even more money, but I got to a point where I was selling a lot of homes. I was closing 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 transactions in a single month.
Mhm.
And in the summer of 2010, I was able to become a broker. And so crazy to me that they gave a 26-year-old their broker's license. So then I started recruiting agents and started my first iteration of a brokerage. And that was a huge failure, but then started implementing the team model, and then that started working out really well. So I don't want to go too far down the rabbit holes. I don't want to go year by year here, but long story short, I've been in the real estate team building game now, I guess, for about 15 years.
I should wanna ask you questions about real estate, but I really wanna ask you about being a landman, but you haven't watched the program yet, so you have to
Yeah.
go watch it, and the only spoiler I'll give you is that the ex-wife and the daughter are the ones that if they wiped them off the show, I'd be much happier, but I need to know if it's true, so you go watch it, and then you'll come back on and we'll talk about Landman because Taylor Sheridan has not had a miss yet, as far as I know, on TV programs. It's so good. Okay, so let's just go back. Your Keller Williams days, were you in the office Laura Duggan's in? Or
No,
were you
I
you weren't in
worked
Mike
at
Brody's operation? Mike is a good friend of mine, but he's primarily in Plano.
I wasn't in one of the KW market centers. The team I was on had an office, like, in a suburb of Austin.
Oh, okay. Like Bastrop or closer
Round
in?
Rock.
Oh, Round Rock, okay. Because Bastrop's where I would live if I had to move out there, except I think they're getting infiltrated by Austinites now.
Well, it's getting infiltrated by Elon Musk, Tesla, a Boring Company, and, all those
I
companies are.
I don't trust Tesla. I know I'm crazy to say that, but self-driving cars, I need my square body truck. I'm
Yeah,
done all that.
I have autonomous vehicles that drive around here like crazy, and
With the Waymo.
the Waymos are all over Austin.
Don't they run over people though? They, like, ran through a school bus stop or something. They're crazy.
Yeah, I think they had to program them to be mindful of crosswalks, so,
Do
like,
you
they
ride in it or do you just look at it and say, "Maybe
no,
for somebody."
I've ridden them and I've taken my kids in the Waymos. Yeah,
No way, you put your kids in one?
I put my kids in there too.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know what I think about that, but anyway, I'm an old mom. Okay, so I wanna go back to because we have a lot of viewers on the show who are either getting into real estate or thinking about getting into real estate. They don't know how hard it is to go from 0 to the first deal. And even though you said you were not super coachable and you were 21 and the market was rough, you still came out of the gates and sold a couple of houses. What is the one thing you would tell a new person getting in? And let's just assume they're not connected, they don't have a huge database, and maybe they've got a team leader that's not training correctly or that they're not listening to. What would you tell them to go do on their own?
I think the biggest thing I learned is how important it is to get high intent leads,
Like that
and
word.
like, Google PPC leads, Zillow, Realtor.com, all of those are not high intent. Like, you gotta buy 100 of them, and maybe you'll close, like, one of them. And by the way, it's gonna take you, like, 6 to 12 months minimum to get one of them to close. I think the real, like, secret sauce is focus on the lead sources that are people that need to transact really fast. I think the tech world has kind of brainwashed us, and they tell us, like, it should just be normal that you wait 12 to 24 months to get a lead to close, and that's freaking crazy. The idea of, like, having hundreds of leads in your pipeline to manage for 2 years and to get, like, maybe 1 out of 100 to close is ludicrous, and so you really put a proverbial ceiling on your income, and you're basically broke for a long time. You wanna go after the lead sources that are gonna have a really high conversion rate, and the people are gonna transact in the next 90 days, not in the next 2 years.
Well, and we know that if you're paying a monthly fee to a website or a company that's bringing you leads, it takes you 12 to 24 months to close a lead. You know what you're doing that 12 to 24 months? Paying that company every month. Y'all, you got to remember that. They have a disincentive to bring you fast people because the longer they keep sending you unactionable leads, the more you're going to pay them. Ugh. So where did you find your actionable people? Were you stalking apartment complexes or were you going to a yard sales and looking for people that were cleaning their houses out?
Yeah, so, I mean, everybody has the same answer. The first go-tos are sphere of influence, open house, and then my grandpa he was like a career preacher. He got his PhD in
Oh,
theology. Preacher.
Southwestern?
Yes, he did actually. Yeah. He went to Baylor, and then he graduated with his PhD from Southwestern. He did weddings, he did funerals, he did it all, right? He led church service on Sunday and everything in between. And so I remember he referred me somebody, and it was this woman, and her husband had passed away, and
Oh.
she needed to sell the house. And so I went and met her, and she was receiving, like, all these letters in the mail. from investors saying like, "I'll buy your house for cash as is, yada yada yada." And I'm like, how are they finding out that she may be a seller? And so what I learned in 2010 is that the highest intent leads you can get, coincidentally, are all listed on public record. So probate, which that's a big chunk of people that sell because they inherited a home. Another big chunk of people that sell, actually, an even bigger chunk of people that sell are divorce, and divorce proceedings are public record. And then the third one are the people facing foreclosure. And the interesting thing that I learned about the foreclosure list is that a vast majority of the properties that get listed for foreclosure don't actually get foreclosed on. Like people get the bank to agree to extend
Mhm.
it, give them more time. And so these lead lists, foreclosure, probate, and divorce were like my thing. And back in the day, I used to have to go down to the courthouse. Like I literally go to the courthouse, pull all the records, I'd pull the information. It was so time consuming. So I'd pull all the records and then I'd track the phone numbers down on like whitepages.net or whatever and would do direct mail and call them and everything. And it was super effective. Like, there was a lot of legwork required. Like, fortunately, now you don't have to do all that. I use abouttosell.com, and they basically scrape the county websites, and then they enrich it with phone numbers, emails, and all that. So thank you, God, I do not have to do that anymore. But anyways, those people transact, like, in 90 days, like, crazy fast. Like, you don't have to wait a year, 2 years, like, no freaking way you're waiting a year or 2, like, those people need to transact fast, and everything I did in terms of reaching out to them was, like, really effective. Like, if I called them, I got results. If I called them and direct mailed them, I got even better results. If I started sending them, like, recently, we started sending them ads via OTT, those streaming apps. Like, we serve ads on their streaming apps on their TV. You can, like,
Mhm.
put it homeowner's address and put an ad on their TV. And what's crazy is it's only $32 per 1,000 people. Like you load up 1,000 homeowners addresses, and it's 32 bucks to put one ad on their television. It's crazy cheap. So, anyways, every time I did something with these lead lists, like it generated more leads and more leads, and the lead to appointment ratio was amazing. So, for every 1.6, this is going to blow people's mind. For every 1.6 leads, I get one face to face meeting, and for every two face to face meetings, I get one listing signed.
That's insane.
It's insane. Like, when you compare it to all the stuff people are, like, paying for to get digital seller leads online, it's madness.
So let me ask you a question then, because when you encountered that first opportunity through your granddad and they were getting all these letters in the mail, but did you find out that most people were taking the same information you got and just sending letters and then you one upped them because you picked up the phone and you were a real live person?
Most of them, well, number 1, realtors for some reason didn't really use those lists, and it was primarily all investors. That's what I realized, is it was primarily investors and not realtors, and so, I'm meeting with the seller and I'm, giving them all the options, right? I'm saying like, "Yeah, you can sell it as is to this investor, or you can, list in the MLS and get this price, and even after commissions, you're gonna make like, 5 to 10% more
Yeah.
minimum, and you don't have the fear of worrying about having to do repairs and all that kind of stuff." And then, like, I'm sure there's people on here that have friends that are, roofing companies or whatever. And so, like, I developed some relationships with different vendors that would, not charge the person up front, and they would do the work so the house would qualify for financing. And so now you're selling it for like way more than if they sold it
Sure.
to an, even if it didn't qualify for financing before.
And for everybody out there, this is why you prospect. Because if you hear what Chris just said, sure, it benefited him, but it was so much better for that consumer. They're getting such a better outcome because now they have a lot of options that they wouldn't have had if all they had been reached out to was that quick investor and then they're done. And so your prospecting and information is helpful to people. I don't know why agents are so afraid to prospect. They're afraid of rejection, but they forget their information is really helpful to people.
Yeah. But the cool thing is like you wouldn't even have to prospect them. Like if you send them the letters and do the OTT, you're gonna have people calling you. So even if you hate calling, you just do those two things, and you'll have people go to your website and fill out a form.
So you've been doing some shifting and adjusting yourself into a new business model here lately. Tell us what you've been creating.
Well, I didn't really like continue my story from 2010 to current, but and
Do you have to go dip back into those 16 years and tell us what we know?
I mean, it's just, basically like I
I mean,
got
you're
the
with
business.
Cabo, so I feel like you're probably doing okay.
I mean, in a nutshell, I got the business to grow really, really fast. In that 2-year time period, 2011, 2012, I got the team to sell between 300 and 350 homes a year. And we only had 6 or 7 agents, and we netted after all expenses $1 million. And I was going to these masterminds and all these events and hearing amazing speakers like you on stage. And so I was like 28 or 29 at the time. And a lot of people had told me like nobody had ever scaled a team that fast and that profitable. And so a lot of people were asking me what I was doing and all these things. I ended up writing this book, which I published like many, many years ago. I wrote it like 7 or 8 years ago.
Gave away
Uh,
your last copy to look around for it.
So like I wrote this book 7 or 8 years ago
Alright.
called The $1 Million Real Estate Team. And it's kind of like my memoir between 2010 and 2013. I'm not trying to sell this. If your audience wants a free copy, I'll give you a little link and they can have one for free.
But before you get that book for free, I hope y'all heard what he said because a lot of the real estate teams that are out there, they barely break even at the end of the year. You're walking away with profit, which means you are obviously treating it like a business. And I'd say if there's any mistake agents make when they try to grow, it's that they spend their way into zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a huge difference maker for your books. Y'all probably should download it and let AI read it for you because you won't read it, we know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very tactical book, and there's certain things in there that are a little outdated now because it's been 7 or 8 years. Like we talked about the tools we use and stuff. But anyway, so I grew this team super fast, and then I started helping other people do it, and then they started going from 25 deals to 300 deals and 400 deals a year. And so I was like, I think we're onto something here. And so then we started basically helping like one team every month grow. And in 2020, I looked up and I'm like, man, our kind of group of teams we put together bringing in $60 million a year in commissions.
That's
Um,
awesome.
my team got to doing over 10 million a year in commissions, and my EBITDA was over $2.5 million. So that's what I pay taxes on. And so I looked around, and as we were kind of growing, we started having all these challenges. Like you outgrow a lot of your systems, and there weren't a lot of solutions that existed. And what I mean is, as your business gets bigger, you have to have a lot more systems in place, like lead gen systems, CRM, transaction management. And so technology became a pretty big hindrance to us to continue growing. I got to a point revenue wise where I could afford to hire people a lot smarter than me. So I put in place a director of marketing, director of sales, director of operations. I hired a president from the private equity world. And so I've been fairly disconnected from the business for several years. We use something called the EOS framework, entrepreneurial operating systems, and we do our level 10 meetings. And I look at those summaries and I look at the P&Ls and all that. I'm not completely absent, but I've spent the last 6 years on this tech venture trying to help the real estate industry kind of evolve. A lot of people don't even know that I have been involved, but like companies like Ylopo, Boomtown, Sisu, Structurally, Sierra Interactive, I can go down the list. Like this tech company I got involved, we basically created in cyberspace the bridges technologically between all these platforms, and we got thousands of teams on it or whatever. And that was cool and all, but it wasn't really having that big of an impact on the teams that I was a part of and the teams I was helping. Like basically us facilitating all these integrations. And so I kind of went down this rabbit hole of like, how can I figure out how to help decrease the churn in the industry? Cause like so
Mhm.
many like get chewed up and spit out. And so I started just like thinking about like, what does this like learning adaptation loop look like? What I mean by that is like, and I think most brokerages do a great job no matter which one it is, but you know, most companies do a great job of onboarding, and then they do training like in a classroom, right? And then they have some continuing education, but there's this one final component of this, like, call it learning adaptation. This is something I read in a book, so I'm not that smart. I read in this book about how important it is to understand this loop around creating learning adaptation. And you know this as a speaker, only 10 people only remember 10% of what you say on stage, right?
Max, yeah.
So anyways, brokerages already do a great job of onboarding, training, some continuing education, right? But there's this one part of the loop missing, and it's what's known as the enforcement loop.
Hmm.
It's been the most like the biggest epiphany I think of my last 20 years, realizing that the industry doesn't have this in place. And it's this part of the learning adaptation loop that is causing our industry to have so much churn. Basically, what's interesting is I started reaching out to people like Gary Keller and Dave Linegar of Remax and these guys that have been around forever. And I went down the rabbit hole of like, when NAR was formed in 1908, what did our industry look like from like an organizational perspective? And like, when did it start changing? In the 1970s and 1980s is when the industry really started changing a lot. And that's when franchising kicked off. The companies really started to have scale because of franchising. Prior to that, there weren't these big national platforms. And it was because everything was very local. The brokerages and the brokers were a lot more like how they were like teams. Like the broker was responsible for helping give the agent leads and helping train them. And the broker would go do ride alongs with them to meet buyers and sellers, and they would listen to them on the phone. And so it was like it was this much more like intimate type environment, kind of like how a team should be. And so in the 70s and 80s, it became this badge of honor when you had like 200 agents per broker. And so when you have those type of ratios and you think about the learning adaptation loop, the enforcement component of it is impossible to pull off. And so if you study other industries adjacent to ours, for example, there's a massive property management company. I mean, it's like insane the number of apartment complexes, like big $100 million apartment complexes, right? 200 million. Like they need these suckers rented out.
Mhm.
They literally mystery shop every single month their listing agents or their leasing agents, and then they send them reports immediately after. And they have these grading rubrics, and then they also grade their calls and they give them feedback like right away, like as soon as they do it. And so in most brokerages, it's impossible to do that because of that broker agent ratio. And then even most teams, it's really hard to do. But you might do some ride alongs like in month one, two, or three, but you're not doing it probably in month six or 12. And then you're probably definitely not listening to phone calls every day to help coach the agent and lead them to success. Long story short, I developed this app for my team where basically we took the large learning model of Gemini and we uploaded like over 10,000 hours of like buyer agent training phone calls, listing agent training phone calls. We uploaded in person appointment recordings, like with sellers, in person with buyers. And then we uploaded all this training content. And then we created these grading rubrics for a buyer call, like how that should go, a seller call, and like what that looks like to get to the appointment booked. And then the same for when you're face to face with somebody, what that process should look like. And then same with a buyer. And then on the mobile app, we created this record button. And you hit record and it records the entire listing appointment, for example.
Nice.
And then it fills out this entire grading rubric to give the agent instant coaching feedback based off what they did well or what they need to improve upon. And then they can take that feedback and go either talk to their broker or talk to a coach and like role play and try to figure out, for example, like I'm 7, 8 months deep into like looking at these now. And our team sets a lot of the listing appointments. We set like 300, about 200 appointments on a bad month, 300 on a good month. So I've seen a lot of reports now, report cards. But I've seen, people get stuck on objections around commissions, around pricing. I've seen ones where like agents just like totally skip over the rapport building stage and they go straight into numbers and like what they're going to do to market the house. And so, anyways, that's what I've been like obsessing on for the past several years is like how to actually, have a positive impact on the industry and decrease the churn and help more agents lead to success. I ask myself frequently if I was that 21-year-old kid again, would that have helped me? You know, would have helped me been more humble. So I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, it would
And
help if you were coachable.
I know, and I don't even know if with the I mean, maybe, like the AI feedback is like so objective, there's no like emotion in it. You know what I mean? It's like just very objective. It's like the AI feedback is like, hey, you got into a dispute around the seller versus leading them to their own discovery by showing them active pendings and solds. Next time, why don't you ask them like, hey, Mr. Seller, if you were a buyer and you looked at all these active pendings and solds, what would you pay for them?
Hmm.
Versus telling the seller they're basically an idiot, you know? Like that's an example of like some of the AI feedback that it gives. So
I love what you're addressing here because when we look at the training provided in the profession overall, usually it's all about lead generation. And there's very little to do with that very important skill of conversion. Because even if they get to the appointment and you design the appointment, that's where I see a lot of agents. They just get stuck or they throw their hands up. They don't have the resilience to help the other person see the other side. It's not about making somebody do something. All of that training is what you just described with that seller. You're not making them say something. You're like, look, just take this perspective so they can have the aha moment.
Mhm.
And that's what a good realtor does is you help somebody else have an aha moment so that they get what they want, and then you benefit by selling something on the other end. So I love what you're approaching here because I think it helps the consumer because they get better agents, and better agents do stay put with their brokers. They don't have to give up so soon.
That's right. Exactly.
So what's the name of your program? Is it going to be for your teams or is it something you're going to sell out there in the marketplace? And
So we
what
actually like
are you
we
working on?
we just released it on the Apple Store and the Android store last month.
Oh, so it's real? You got through the review for apps? Because
Yes.
that's a pain in the
All
tail.
It's all real. So
What's it called?
everything is like owned by realsync.com. Now,
Real Sync.
yeah. So
Like
but we
SINK
create
or SYNC? Oh, real.
SYNH. And
Is that
so
you, the little sparkly R there? Is that you?
no, SYNCH. And it's two
Oh,
one in one
SYNCH.
word, realsync, one word.
Look, I'm gonna look in real time for you people, so you know what this little fella here, the black
Yep,
with the white
that's it.
outline? Okay.
At the top, it looks like a gear.
Oh, no, the one that's like a
Yeah.
a
It's
gear?
actually like a table with chairs around it.
Okay, that does have an H on it. Look, people, when y'all pull it up, don't go for that one, go for that one.
That's it.
Workflow automation software,
So
live dashboard,
yeah,
leaderboard. Who gets to see that? Me as a brokerage owner?
so the agents get to see where they rank on the leaderboards. They get to see their KPIs. It pulls from the CRM automatically. There's no manual data entry. And then the app itself is recording the face-to-face appointments and giving the AI feedback and assigning a skill score. And then
Oh.
it integrates with your CRM, so it is pulling in the phone calls you make and grading phone calls.
Wait, so
But
this plugs into my Sierra Interactive?
yeah, it plugs into Sierra, the Follow Up Boss KV course, Lofty, Salesforce, Go High Level. I mean, all of them.
I'm getting rid of Bold Trail right now, so I'll be super excited when I can make it just plug into Sierra Interactive.
Yep, we got
And I don't have to use Zapier, it'll do it on its own, I don't have to go
Zapier
hoops.
required. Nope, no Zapier required.
Oh, I'm getting a 502 bad gateway. What does that mean? Your
I don't
site
know.
didn't like me. I
Reals
tried to log in with my Apple ID.
Realsync.com.
Yeah. I got
Yeah,
my
this
little
is
picture of a gear. It didn't go in all the way. Let's see. Sign in. Oh, I don't sign in. I don't have an account. Wait a minute. I probably got to make an account. I'll
yeah,
figure that out later. All right. Y'all should check it. I'll include the information on the show notes so people can ask you questions about what it does for them. How about that?
yeah. They can reach out to me on Instagram. I can send them DM or send me a DM, and I can answer any questions.
So
So
what's your goal with the Real Sync? Is it to increase productivity? You said reduce churn. Is that for team leaders so that their agents will stay with the team and not feel like they have to fly the nest?
like
Consumers
I'm
to come back to their agents. What's the primary goal?
I mean it like for example, there's 3 different avatars. So one is let's say you're a coach and you're coaching agents. It's great. You first as a coach, you need all those KPIs, like how many calls did they make? How many appointments were set? And like by looking at those conversion rates, it tells a story. Now, there's already tools out there that exist that tell you some of the KPIs, but they don't go the next level deep. And the next level deep is being able to get access to the calls and the in-person meetings. And so if a coach has the insights from what you're actually saying on the phone and what you're saying face to face, the story from the conversion perspective, and then when they see under the hood and they know what you're actually saying, then they can actually coach you more effectively. That's my, my opinion. So anybody in the coaching business, this like helps them lead their students better. Anybody that has a brokerage with lots of agents that's trying to reduce their churn by, you know, trying to help the agents understand where they're having challenges and a lot of those agents are newer, so they're not going to know. So like brokerages, that's another, potential person. And then, of course, teams. So anybody that's got a team and is spending money on lead generation, like if you're spending money on lead generation, like it's stupid not to be able to understand what the agent's saying on the phone or in person. So I looked all over to try to find something that did this, and we couldn't find it. And the market the last couple of years has been really tough because transactions are way down. And so now it's like, man, it's mind blowing what I've learned from the report cards we get. People showing up without CMAs, people
What?
getting disputes at the kitchen table around like pricing or commission, and just they're approaching it the wrong way. And the great thing is though, is like our industry's been around a long time. Like our NAR was formed in 1908. Been a lot of smart people walk this industry before us. And if you're humble enough and don't follow in my footsteps of being a 21-year-old, there's smart people out there like you that can help lead them to success.
Man, as I'm sitting here thinking, I got to go look at this for my team. All right, Chris. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to find you? It's Instagram. Are you Chris Waters on Instagram?
So it's Christopher Waters. Yeah.
Oh,
On
Christopher.
Instagram.
You're very formal.
Yeah. Well, there's an actor in Hollywood with the name Chris Waters, and he has chriswaters.com. So I had to improvise and
Is
get
he older or younger than you?
He's quite a bit older.
Okay,
He's
so let me give you a bit of hope here because I finally got page 1 of Google for Leigh Brown because there was a very famous Australian rugby player named Leigh Brown, and he finally retired and got out of the fantasy leagues. So I got page 1, but it took me several years. I just wanna give you hope.
How did you like buy the domain from him?
Oh, no, he didn't have LeighBrown.com. He had everything else, and so if you Google Leigh
Oh,
Brown, all you would
oh,
get is his head of really nice dark hair and all of his Australian rugby stats, and I'm like, "You can't have page 1 of Google." It didn't matter what I did for SEO, black hat, white hat, didn't matter. I couldn't beat him because of the fantasy leagues, but
yeah.
he's down
Wow.
now.
Well, yeah, maybe in 10 more years, this guy will get rid of the domain name.
There's hope yet,
Yeah,
Chris.
fingers
Prefer.
crossed.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us a lot of background and a really interesting future thing that you're building here. And when you watch Landman and you've heard what Billy Bob Thornton has to say, we'll have you back on for part 2 and you can give us some updates on what you're building and what you can do to help the profession get better.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. Guys, if you learned something, put it in the comments. Go follow Christopher and all of his information's in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, friends, if that episode made you laugh, think, or shout, "Oh, gosh, go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on that little tiny bell so you don't miss the next round of Real Talk with Leigh Brown.